Have you ever noticed how the SJW colored people, they always have all these opinions about how this is offensive and that's offensive, and white people opening up burrito shops is offensive? Something that actually happened in Portland. 2 girls got their burrito shop shut down because of social justice warriors. A black social justice warrior became offended because the Willamette Weekly or something made an article about these 2 girls who went to Mexico, learned kind of somewhat teensy bit about how to make tortillas, and they came back, perfected the technique, and sold burritos. She got them shut down because of the outrage of the cultural appropriation. Here's what I think. I don't think these people have any self-awareness. I don't think they understand that they're an individual person. I almost think that and this is the way they act, at least. They act like when a comment is specifically targeted towards them or a particular group, they act like it's a comment that applies to every single person in that minority. And that's absolutely fucking ridiculous. Because it doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. You don't know what other people's perspectives are. I can't believe this is something that has to be said. But I feel like there are so many people out there who just don't understand. Your experiences are your experiences. My experiences are my experiences. And they're different. If you are part of a specific race, you cannot speak for other people. Would you please fucking stop? Just like I watched the YouTuber Some Black Guy. Obviously, the crazy bitch who got the girl's burrito shop shut down, he wouldn't agree with her. They're both quote-unquote black, whatever the fuck that means anyway. You guys are so fucking proud of being black, but what the fuck does that mean? Like, I'm not proud of being white, because white is just the color of my skin. It's not who I am. It's not my soul. It's just my outward appearance. Do you guys understand this at all? And so anytime, just anytime, somebody makes even like a comment like, I was watching this video Sargon of Cod had, and he showed this video of this guy trying to have a discussion with a group of social justice warriors, and they were saying he was racist. Well, his buddy got really frustrated at one point and was like, talking to you guys is like fucking useless then, or something like that, or why are you guys here? It's fucking useless for you to be here, or something like that. Well, of course, one girl in the group of social justice warriors who's already extremely angry goes, "You shouldn't say that all colored people are useless." It's like, dude, you weren't even listening to what he fucking said. Second of all, you obviously took that as an insult to yourself. All you heard was useless, and you're like, I'm useless, which means he thinks that everybody in my race is useless. Because I am everybody in my race. I swear to God, this is what people think. They're so collectivized in their mindset that they think that everybody else thinks like them. Because they're surrounded by these fucking people who have all these arbitrary rules, and they act like these arbitrary rules are principles by which to live by. You know, the principle of white people are evil, and the principle of black people are always the victim. Those aren't principles. Those are arbitrary rules. And to mistake them as principles, as these people have, is really, really fucking with them. That's why they get so extreme, because they don't understand the concept of principles versus arbitrary rules. Arbitrary rules won't get you anywhere. You have to have principles by which to live by. And you know what? This is the thing. They always go to the racism card. Always, always, because they see the personal insults against themselves as being part of their entire group because they don't have their own personal identity. They have no individuation. And that's really sad. They need to get some individuation, you know. It's just a group of entitled brats living by arbitrary rules as if they're principles and forcing control onto other people. It's fucked up. And then, to make themselves feel better, because they don't actually have any real principles by which they live by. And because they don't have any principles by which they live by, they feel lost. They get depressed, so on and so forth. They don't have any motivation, but they know there's something that they should be fighting for or struggling towards or trying to get to. They know there's something. There's not just no reason, right? If there is, well, that's pretty fucking depressing. So they have to fight for something. So they come up with these arbitrary rules, and to follow these arbitrary rules makes them feel better. And to get angry and super self-righteous about somebody else making a comment that they themselves were offended by and claiming that they're protecting an entire group of people by calling this person out and saying they're racist or culturally appropriating somebody else's culture or food and they're somehow stealing from them. And they're always evil and do you guys realize what you're doing? You're not just making a comment about a person's behavior. You're not just making a comment about a person's personality. You're making a comment about a person's soul. Because here's the thing. Our souls are built on the principles that we follow. Okay? So if you live by the principle of forgiveness, then you have to act that out, right? And in turn, that influences how you refine your principles, because, you know, the principle of forgiveness is great, but you have to have an idea of what forgiveness looks like. Right? And then you refine that idea of forgiveness until you come to a more clear understanding of what forgiveness actually is and how it can be applied in all situations. And so you build up your principles, you live out your principles. Your principles have an influence on your psychology. They have an influence on the material world, and living by principles gives you a sense of meaning and something to work towards, because if you're trying to constantly refine your principles by which you live by to reflect whatever the highest good is, whatever you can think of, you know, you're building up something substantial within yourself that you can go back to time and time again. It's like what Christ said, you know, believe in me, or believe in your principles, I would say, is another good way to do that. Believe in me and you will have everlasting life. You will have, he called himself the bread of life. You know, it just, when you have strong principles, they feed you. You have belief in your principles, that feeds you spiritually, so that psychologically you can stay healthy, and then materially you act upon the world. But here's the thing. The things that these people are getting upset about, they don't even denote the principle of racism, right? Right? To call somebody a racist, you have to believe that they are living by certain principles. The principle of my race is superior to other races. is the principle by which they are living, and or, you know, all the horrible, nasty stuff associated with principles. When you call somebody a racist, you are trying to say that they have racism in their soul. And I'm going to tell you, most people don't live by that principle. The vast, vast majority of us don't live by that principle. The vast majority of us know that equality, because it's been so ingrained in us, we all know that equality is the way to go. We don't want to be racist towards other people. That's been beaten into us by now, okay? We understand that. None of us are racist. There's some people who are racist, but they will tell you they're racist. If a racist denies being racist, they're not a racist, okay? And these people, they see discussion as threatening. They don't want to learn. They don't want to listen. They don't want to hear. They know, based off of their little arbitrary rules, they're fucking themselves up in the head. So yeah. It just bothers me. It bothers me that there's people out there who are so spiritually weak, you know, and I'm not trying to say this from a religious standpoint, right? Because I think we recognize now that religion, on a whole, has lost its place, right? Religion, the way that it was, isn't a useful tool in the same way that it was. But you still have to feed yourself spiritually. And there's things that you do to feed yourself spiritually. And you have to have strong principles. That's one of the things. And one of the ways you develop your principles is by going out and acting your principles out. And if good things happen, then you know your principles are right. If bad things happen, then you know your principles are wrong. Like if you act out one of your principles and you cause more suffering to the world, and you take away, and that's another principle of yours, and it interferes with that principle, then you know that that principle is not right. That's not the principle that you want to live by. Anyway, I really wish these people had some more self-awareness. We've done a real disservice, I think, in our society. We haven't allowed our children, you know, to mature properly. We haven't allowed our children to individuate themselves. We put them day after day, year after year, in schools where they have to follow lots and lots of rules. Rules that are there for a good reason, rules that aren't there for a good reason. But they don't understand the principle behind the rules. They just are told, you have to follow the rules. They don't understand why. But the rules make them feel safe. And so they progress. And they believe whatever's told to them. Because they haven't had a chance to go out and live an experience. They go to school. They come home. Their parents are exhausted because they both work. They go to bed. They wake up the next morning. On the weekends, they might go play with their friends. But their friends are all from school. So they all think the same. They're all the same. And it's a real shame, you know. There should be more time devoted to developing young minds and helping them develop into strong-willed, principled people. And I think that's one of the really big flaws in our society, and why we are so susceptible to Islam right now, because they have a lot of beliefs and some really fucked up arbitrary rules that they act like are principles. They have very, very strong beliefs in those arbitrary rules. They have very, very strong belief in the principle of submission to Allah and to Muhammad. That's what their souls are built off, and it gives them fire. It gives them passion, and it makes them want to come attack us. And it's what gives Islam so much power. We in the West, we have to regain our spirituality in order to defeat Islam. I hope you guys understand that. And to defeat this fucking social justice warrior bullshit. Like, every single one of them needs to be sat down in a chair and needs to be re-educated. And not re-educated, like, in a mean way, by the way. Just more re-educated, like, take them away from their peer group. Put them in nature. Put them in different situations that they've never been in. Put them with people that they wouldn't normally interact with. Just expand their experiences. And in that way, a person grows. And you could have them open up to new ideas. At first, it would be hard. But if you were to do this with every single one of them and help them figure out what their principles are and what good principles are to live by, then it would fix a lot of the problems, right? I mean, that's why the church was a community. Because the community helps control people. Or, not control is not the right word. They help educate people, I don't know if this is a Protestant notion or if this is just something that I got from my dad, or if this is a Christian notion, but the notion is that when you have a young person in your community, the entire community should come together to try to help that person grow spiritually. And they should try to help those people gain the principles by which they live a good and healthy life for themselves and society. It's really important. And you know what? We haven't done that with this generation. This generation has no principles. This generation, my generation, the Millenials, which I don't like being considered part of, we weren't raised with principles. That's just the fact of the matter. We're lost. We don't know what we're doing. I mean, it's obvious. And you know what, though? There's some of us, some people out there are trying. And this is good. This is really good. There's people like Sargon of Akkad. He's a great example for somebody who obviously has principles by which he lives. And he's obviously somebody who is refining his principles by which he lives as he goes on, because I've seen evolution in him, and I still continue to follow him because he's always interesting. He always has something insightful to say, because he's a strong-willed, principled man, and he has good principles. And so when you have people like that come and they're leaders, they start to teach other people through their actions. And it's a really good thing. It's a really good thing. But these people who are the social justice warriors, they're so lost. They have no idea what gives life meaning. They have no idea. They don't know what real suffering is. They don't know what any of it is. They don't know what life is. They haven't had enough experiences. That, or they're so closed off to learn, And we as a society did this. We did this by making our schools more and more restrictive and more obsessed with standardized tests, and by taking the mom out of the household and putting her in the workforce. When a child stays at home with its mother, the child can learn from its mother during the day, and when his father comes home, they learn from them on the weekends. And the father, he gets time on the weekends to spend with his children because the mother takes care of the household. And then the father gets to go out, like, I don't know, in the garage with his kids, spend time with them, teach them things, help them become principled human beings. You know, children need more space. They need to be allowed to grow and explore and all of these things. The way that we have our educational system right now, messed up to the core. Messed up to the core. You're gonna get unprincipled people all the way unless we completely restructure our education system to actually challenge people and challenge people's beliefs and their principles and all these things. Unless we change things, we're not going to have principled people in our country. It's just not going to happen. So what can you do? I mean, what is the fucking point of me making this video, right? Well, let's start the discussion at least. You know, like, let's get talking about this. We have to talk about how important the spiritual realm is and how important principles are. And you experience your principles in a spiritual way, and then you act them out in a physical way. So you can share my video, you can make your own video. If you don't want to share my video, I don't particularly care. It's the idea there, right? And I don't know, maybe somebody has a better idea of how an education system should be run, and maybe that person should start sharing some ideas, or maybe you could come up with ideas, or just any idea for any type of social problem. Share your ideas. This is the time to do it. This is the era of the idea. We have the internet. There's so much that we can figure out right now if we just talk to each other, if we just share ideas. We can learn how to become principled again if we continue to have these discussions. The more and more people who have these discussions and come to the realization that they need to develop a set of principles by which to live by, that's going to do well for them, and what principles to live by, the more that we do that, the more we become a principled nation, the more that we'll be able to stand up to extreme influences like the social justice warrior, like the communists, like the Muslims, and any other religious extremists like the Westboro Baptist Church, you know. So I'll leave you with that. You guys have a great day.